Hi everyone, welcome to today's research-informed defensive lesson here at Active Self-Protection. I am your host, as always, John Correa.
And I'm your co-host, Neil Widener.
Lucky Gunner is my recommended trusted provider of freedom seeds for range or defensive use. In stock, good prices, and rocket-fast shipping are why I go back again and again. Because of new guidelines, I can't link their site or say it, but you're smart and you can find it with a simple Google search. Stick it to the man by paying them a visit today.
This one's out of Brazil. You're gonna tell from all the moto robbers here. A bunch, like 10 guys on motorcycles jump out and start robbing folks, including on the right here, this young couple who is engaged to be married and are on a motorcycle trip. In fact, the news story I've linked in the description said that the bride just tried on her wedding dress that week and they were planning their wedding. Well, our armed robber here is going to disabuse them of their motorcycle that they had stopped just to get gas and stretch their legs for a minute on a road trip. So he is gonna drive off on their bike. Everyone else is going to drive off. You're going to see one more robber who's going to run off. Now, there was an off-duty police officer who saw what was going on here, and he runs in frame and shoots the victims. He actually shot the female in the back on this one. He said he saw that she had a black coat on and a helmet on, just like all the robbers. You've seen all these robbers in black attire and helmets on, and she was the same. And so then he put a shot in her, and she perished from that shot. He ran off to go see what was going on with the rest of those robbers. They all ran off. I don't think they caught any of them. And then everyone's going to stand around. Nobody's going to offer her any first aid or anything like that. And that woman died there because of that case of mistaken identity. What an absolutely terrible outcome from this one. Oh boy. Neil gets to do an awful lot of reading of the comments here at Active Self-Protection. And we read all of the comments in the app, every single one, and those tend to be pretty good. Neil, on YouTube, maybe a little different.
It's not, people are not as nice on the YouTubes as they are in the app, but it's always fun. Well, it's not always fun. It's always interesting, let's say that. And I spend a good portion of my day communicating with people in the comments.
So, be nice, be kind, be professional, be a good, sane, sober, moral, prudent commenter, would you? You know, at the beginning of this one, Neil, just a terrible outcome out of this one. And this couple, I don't blame them, of course. It can be difficult to get a concealed carry permit in Brazil in 2025. And sometimes the right answer is you just got to comply. You just got to be like, all right, man, you want my bike? Here it is. Have a nice day and take it. And they did that. And I think that was the right answer for them here.
I think it was too, John, and looking at it, you know, we'll get into more things of what could be and what could have been done and all of that in the analysis. But in this case, man, they rolled in fast and hot, and you know, they had gun in hand immediately in their face. I don't think they had a chance, you know, with you know, to do a counter ambush here, just simply because they were outnumbered so badly. And I don't really see a lot of opportunity even for the, you know, to where you see the ear or the back of the head of the guy. Maybe there's a brief window here and there, but for the most part in this case, I think, you know, putting your hands up and backing away and getting out of the danger zone is the way to go.
Yeah, and sometimes you just got to take the L. I don't like that. And sometimes, though, that's the best answer. Even if you were armed, sometimes the best answer is to take the L, because the bad guy sets the time and the place of the attack, and he's only going to tell you about it at the last minute. Again, Tom Gibbons is famous for saying that. And that's exactly what he does here. So he takes their motorcycle. I do think if you're going to carry tools, don't keep them in the bags of your bike. Don't keep them in the console of your car, because when your vehicle gets stolen, they get that tool with them as well. Keep those important things on your person. I will say, though, Neil, that I'm not blaming them here for what happened. I think they were innocent victims all the way around, but they just stayed there and hung out, which is very common. You just freeze. And of course, as this last bad guy runs off, had they realized, man, we got to get out of this danger zone and run, maybe into the convenience store or just run away from the scene, they might have been able to save their own life. And I hesitate to say that because I don't want people to think that I'm blaming them, because I'm not blaming them for what happens. We're going to talk about what happens here in just a second. But if I take proactive steps to protect myself, I might be able to prevent negative outcomes from this. And that's why we tell people to get out of the danger zone quickly.
Yeah, John, I go back to one thing that you said is if you're going to carry a gun, carry it on your body, not in your saddlebags or in the compartment of your whatever vehicle. Just simply because, as we saw that, we did see the back of that guy's head at least a couple of times. So they potentially could have acted. But again, they were outnumbered so bad. I feel like they kind of made the right decision in this case to take the loss and walk away with their lives. One thing that I wonder about is we're frozen here on this bad guy that's looking back over his shoulder. I don't know if he exchanged shots with that off-duty officer already and there was already gunfire going on. If there is, for sure, get out of Dodge. Get moving to keep yourself safe from, a miss. Bad guys and good guys miss fairly frequently, and all of those rounds end up somewhere. You don't want it to be in you. So get yourself out of that danger zone and get away if you can.
Absolutely get away if you possibly can. Now, I want to talk about getting involved in a third-party encounter here, because the officer, if you go read the news story, we linked in the description, said that, he saw all these robbers, and what he saw with the two victims was that they were dressed the same. The brain is a connective organ, and it is a heuristic organ, and it is going to look and see patterns. And now I think that that's important, but I do think, Neil, this is a good time for us to think about, should we get involved in third-party encounters? And I know everyone in their mind thinks, well, I'll get involved and I'll make the right decision. But what happens when you make the wrong decision? What happens when you don't understand everything that's happening here, you don't know who the good guys and bad guys are, and you end up in this scenario, and you got to live with that for the rest of your life. And that's just a terrible, terrible, terrible thing to have to hold on to for the rest of your life.
Well, it's just a burden that's going to weigh you down for the entire rest of your life, that you made, a fatal mistake for somebody else and you got to walk away and they didn't. You ended a life when you shouldn't have. Those kind of things don't go away. We've talked to enough people that have been in these kind of scenarios. Even when it was a righteous shoot and they did the right thing and saved their family's life, they still don't sleep right at night. 20, 30 years later, that stuff sticks with you when you've done that. So if you're going to be a third party and get involved, you have to be, you have to be visually patient enough to make sure that you make the right decision. You've got to look for somebody that's, threatening somebody with a gun that, just doesn't necessarily look like the rest of the crowd, because in this case, everybody's riding motorcycles. They're all wearing black jackets. That doesn't make everybody a bad guy. The other thing is that everybody was already gone. For the most part, the robbery was pretty much over, and now you rush in, and we see that a lot of cases, like in a mass shooting event or something like that. The shooting goes off, and 7-8 seconds go by, and then all the guns come out of the people in the crowd that have guns, and then they start making decisions. So once it's over, let it be over, and be vigilant towards looking for those clues that says, yes, there may still be a bad guy afoot here, and the things to look for are guns, are different tools, knives, those kind of things that they might be threatening somebody with. But somebody just standing around with their hands at their side is not a threat. And if you're a cop, you can go take them into custody and question them and all of those kind of things. But just starting to shoot people in the back is, and again, we say all the time, it's not where you shoot them, it's why you shoot them. But why did he shoot them? He made the decision to shoot them because it looked like, because they had the black jacket on. So you've got to have more in your decision-making tree than do they look like the rest of that crowd.
I really think that's critical what you just said, Neil. This is why we say, look at the hands. The hands are where all the danger comes from. Is anybody here have a gun? Do they have the ability, the opportunity, and the manifested intent to do deadly harm to someone else? So the ability and opportunity, they have a gun in their hand and they are pointing it at people. So that manifests their intent. They put them at actual jeopardy, if you want to take that approach to things. And if you have that, why did you shoot her? Well, because she was pointing a gun at somebody. But absent that, instead, well, she looked like a robber, is not justification for the use of deadly force. And I don't know if this guy faced charges, Neil, but quite frankly, I think what he did was reckless, and this should be charged with reckless manslaughter, or its equivalent. Again, this is Brazil, not in the United States, so I don't know what that is, but that's criminal level of negligence. Certainly, he's going to, in a civil suit, lose everything that he ever had because of that, but that's not going to bring this woman back. I also want to say here, Neil, this is a great reason and a great reminder. I don't know if it would have made a difference, but it's a great reminder to have your emergency individual first aid kit on your person. We sell them through Mountain Man Medical, and all the proceeds for those go to charity. Having that kit on your person, or make your own, I don't care, is super helpful, because maybe if I can get my fiance here to the hospital in time with enough blood volume, we can save her. But when we're all standing around here just kind of looking and not doing anything, her life is wasting away. And so having some training and some equipment in that arena, I think for all self-defenders is super critical.
I think the training is really, really important. John, you know, you got to have the kit to actually be able to do anything, but you have to have the training and know how to use it. And I had an interesting conversation in the comments with a guy not too long ago about, well, I've got the kit and I'll just read the directions. And I'm like, hey, when somebody's bleeding to death, I don't have time to read the directions. Go take a class. Because, you know, they call it stop the bleed for a reason, because the bleeding is what kills people. When they have less blood than they need in their body and their blood pressure is low, everything shuts down, and that's what kills them. You have to be able to stop the bleeding as fast as possible. And again, I don't know if it would have helped in this scenario. I don't know where she was shot or, you know, what the internal injuries are, but everybody just standing around just kind of makes my blood boil, in that I've actually witnessed something like this where everybody stood around and didn't have a training. I was one of them. I didn't have any training. I didn't know what to do, and I watched the lady die along the side of the road because I didn't know what to do. But you know what I did? The next week, I enrolled in a class so that would never happen to me again. You know, now I haven't had the opportunity to use any of that training, but I've kept that training maintained and up to date so that if I ever find myself in that opportunity again, I can take action and do my very best and give them the best chance at life.
I've used my emergency medical training 5 times. I feel like the second I started doing that kind of training, I was a first responder at car wrecks left and right. I've held a dude's head together while the EMS arrived. I've dealt with major bleeding several times. It's a lot, but having some knowledge gives you power. Finally here, of course, I want to talk. This poor woman never imagined that this day was her last day. She's looking forward to her wedding, looking forward to the rest of her life. Things were looking good for her. And yet, instead, that day, everything was done. So it's a good reminder for us to practice spiritual fitness as the foundation and core of active self-protection. And that means that we've lived a good, sane, sober, moral, prudent life, that we have made a difference in our community, and it matters that we existed. Number 2, that we've said everything we need to say to our loved ones, that we've solved every problem that we can, that they know that we love them, so that if it's the last time we get to talk to them, they know that moving forward. And number 3, that we have a strong relationship with Jesus, because we may not have an opportunity to get it in that day, and that is part of everyday fitness and being ready and covering our ass.